Oh, the perils of releasing your game on arbitrary release dates. What's going on, guys? Nate here, and a week ago I did a video discussing some of Skyrim's cut content, and that video did remarkably well, and I had a lot of fun making it, so I figured why not do it again, this time in Fallout 4. So join me as we take a look at some of the mechanics, features, and locations cut from the game. Starting off, Fallout 4 was originally planned to have much more in-depth, no pun intended, oceans and waterways. PC modders found textures for a giant squid-like creature buried in the game's files, as well as a model for a harpoon gun. Now if you played Far Harbor, you know the DLC does include its own harpoon-like weapon, but the one found in the vanilla game's files was very different. This harpoon gun had a completely different appearance, and when modded into the game, whenever the player would fire it, a trail of bubbles would also come out of the gun, as well as a spear, suggesting that this weapon was originally meant for underwater combat. Perhaps it could have even been used against our hypothetical giant squid. Lastly, while on the topic of oceans, there was also an unused quest file named 20 Leagues Under the Sea, with its own custom icon. Now we don't know exactly what was intended here by Bethesda, however the name is an obvious play on the novel 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. The book follows the crew of a naval frigate in search of a sea monster that ultimately just turns out to be a submarine ahead of its time. The crew of this frigate are captured and imprisoned inside of that submarine. Similarly in Fallout 4, there's a quest called Here Be Monsters, where the survivor is tasked with tracking down what a little boy thinks is a huge sea monster, but instead finds out it's in fact the Yangtze Chinese submarine. So it's entirely possible that this was originally supposed to be the 20 Leagues Under the Sea quest, but Bethesda decided to rename it and change the icon for unknown reasons. Now there's also lines that made it into the vanilla game itself that do in fact reference an underwater vault. However, we're not entirely sure if this is connected to the 20 Leagues Under the Sea quest or not. There's also nothing in the game files that confirms this either, so we'll likely never know what's happened here. Moving on, we have the combat zone. This is a location in the game where you have to clear out some raiders and can earn Kate as a companion for doing so. But cut dialogue from a character named Tommy Lonergan reveals Bethesda seems to have had so much more planned. You see, the combat zone features a fighting cage that you can't really do much with, but it looks like Bethesda's intention was to actually allow the player to participate in and spectate upon various fights. You'd be pitted against various raiders, and it's likely that the player could also earn prizes from winning these fights, and perhaps the raiders you'd associate with would grow more and more friendly with you. It's a shame this one had to be removed. We saw a similar thing in the opening sequence of Nuka World, but it certainly didn't fill in any voids. Next is a pretty major cut ending for the Brotherhood of Steel that allows either you or Paladin Dance to become Elder of the faction by challenging Maxon. During the quest Blind Betrayal, after discovering Dance is in fact a synth, Maxon will order you to find and kill him. You track Dance down to a location called Listening Post Bravo. This is where the cut content comes into play. On top of the vanilla options to kill Dance yourself, spare him, etc., you could actually instead challenge Elder Maxon's authority by either defeating him in a duel or convincing him to step down from the Brotherhood via speech check. From there, either you or Dance could assume leadership of the Brotherhood. No matter which of you gets it, very little changes however. The quest line goes on as normal, and you defeat the Institute. What I found surprising is that this whole cut sequence was actually pretty much finished by Bethesda. The dialogue's there, scripts are ready, and a modder on the Nexus was even able to restore it into the game. So the reason Bethesda decided to drop this probably wasn't due to time constraints, but they either felt it was silly or could conflict with the future story. Lastly today we have weapons. Now I decided to just group a bunch of these up together for organizational purposes, because god there are quite a few. Throwable bottles, tomahawks, spears, explosive spears, and even knives have all been found with completed models and textures. Furthermore, there is an untextured model for the classic Chinese assault rifle, an AK-like weapon found in Fallout 3 and New Vegas. This gun's exclusion from Fallout 4 was one that very much surprised me, because it had kind of been a signature of the past games. Later in Nuka World we got a very similar weapon called the handmade rifle, but the Chinese weapon was nowhere to be found. And that about does it for today. Which piece of cut content do you regret losing the most? Leave a comment down below. Personally, I wish oceans were a bit more vibrant as was intended. In the released game, waterways are kinda just there to take up space. If you enjoyed the video, you know this outro. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always very much appreciated, and I hope to catch you all in the next one. Peace out, everybody.